It was a bad thing that happened, horrible thing that happened. We all learned a lot about life through this. And I know people on the outside have learned a lot about themselves through this.
Walked down to the computer lab. Larry and I walked together. The rest of the class was behind us. And he brought me little flowers in a Dixie cup. He's just a sweetheart of a kid. He's a little smaller. You know, those kind of kids. You tend to, okay, you just want to protect them.
We went to type our essays for the Holocaust, Anne Frank and stuff like that.
It's so freaking ironic. It's a unit on tolerance.
I heard that he got caught like a couple of streets over, but I was still scared.
When I found out someone got shot, I knew automatically that it was Larry.
Yeah, same here.
The first time that I met Larry, some kid was over there, and the kid said something to him. And Larry got in his face and said, hey, I am who I am, so don't, you know? And I ran over there. And I got in that kid's face, said, you know what, just leave this kid alone, you know? That's when we became friends, you know? We're like brothers, so we look after each other. We would go to get clothes, right, from the front, and donated clothes. We would always go for the girls' clothes for some reason. I'm like, what?
We had one episode during Christmas break where he got makeup. He put it on, it was purple and bright, and oh my God, it was the first time I'd seen him put makeup on. And he goes, what do you think? And I go, I think you look like a clown. And being a woman who puts on makeup, I can tell you that. So we had a VS take him in and really kind of show him how to put it on, but not put it on.
Further in, all of a sudden, the boots appeared. And I remember thinking, I can't walk in those things all day. I don't know how he's doing it.
He's a tough kid, pretty strong-willed. And I remember telling him one time, Larry, you really shouldn't be wearing heeled shoes to school because it's, you know, it's dangerous when you're doing PE. And so he put on tennis shoes and went out the door with me. Little did I know, he had tucked his heels into a backpack.
Whenever Brandon talked about Larry, it was about what Larry was wearing, because it really was just weird. It was like off the wall to him. And it was off the wall to me, too. I think Larry was kind of shoving it in everyone's face. For you to come to school dressed like that, you're making a big statement.
The Valentine's Day game is where everyone says the first person that comes to their mind, who they think is cute, and they have to go up to that person and ask them to be their Valentine. And Larry thought Brandon was cute. He had to go up to Brandon, and it just so happened that Brandon's friends were around him. So he got real embarrassed when Larry asked him to be his Valentine.
Larry made a comment to the effect of, I love you, baby. Brandon was offended by Larry's effeminate demeanor. He was really disgusted by who Larry was. And I think it made him very angry. Brandon approached another student, a girlfriend of Larry's, and he told her, say goodbye to your friend Larry because you're not going to see him after tomorrow.
A real family is what he got at Casa Pacifica. And he felt stronger. He wanted to change, be a new person.
and that's who his alter ego was. One day would be LaQuisha, and then the next day LaTanya, but it always started with La. Everyone knew that Larry was part black. So it was like a generic kind of black name. You don't mess with LaToya or LaTanya. You know, you don't mess with her. At first, people didn't talk to him at all. They thought he was crazy. I think that's kind of the thing he wanted. If they didn't talk to him, they weren't bothering him. It was just kind of relief. And so that's kind of who that person was to him. It's kind of who he wished he was.
When Brandon told me that Larry came to school in high heels, I was like, why?
I had a Black Flag. It's this punk rock band. It was a white shirt, but with the Black Flag symbol underneath, and you could see it through my uniform. And instead of just telling me to take it off, you know, take off your undershirt, they suspended me for it.
I got in trouble for everything.
Like,
no collared. I would try to go to shirts. I'd try to wear a regular white shirt and not have a collar and try to get away with it.
If it's a uniform dress code school, how come that one kid got an exception from everybody else?
Larry only accessorized his school uniform for 2 weeks prior to his murder. The first day that I saw him accessorized, I called the district office, and the district office asked me, did it say in our policy that girls could not wear makeup? And I said no. Then you cannot tell him that he cannot wear makeup. There was a law that had just passed in California, SB 777, regarding not discriminating on gender identity or sexual orientation in the educational environment. I told Larry, if you want to come to school and accessorize your clothing, then you may. However, it's going to be very difficult. And if you can get through it, more power to you.
He asked his teachers to call him Letitia instead of Larry. That made some students so uncomfortable, they bullied him.
Using the F word against a gay, lesbian, or transgendered student, it's kind of accepted.
More and more teenagers are coming out. Over 80% of them say there's not one adult in the school situation that they consider to be supportive or helpful in any way.
I had Larry as a student the previous year as a 7th grader, and I knew his inclination. He had discussed it with me. When he asked me what to do about this situation, my response to him was nothing. What to do about this situation is nothing, and to keep it private and to dwell upon it. Larry shouldn't have expressed himself so blatantly, openly transsexual. He progressed day by day in his outward appearance as a girl.
I was talking to my daughter, and she had her old homecoming dress. And everybody knows you don't reuse your dresses. So I said, can I give it to Larry? And he loved it. He just loved it. He ran into the bathroom and he tried it on. So he's always told her it's a little big, but it fits great. My daughter's exceptionally small and petite. She's like a 00, so that'll tell you how small Larry was.
Any teacher with a grain of salt really said, it's out of control. I do believe in a heaven and a hell. And I do believe Larry honestly did not even have a clue the consequences of his actions. I relate to Brandon because I could see my own self being in that very same position. I don't know if I would have taken a gun, but a good swift kick in the butt might work really well.
I know you're visiting. You are a nosy barber.
Larry had a special need. This individualized educational program, which is IEP, where there are behaviors that you're trying to extinguish in the classroom.
Larry had a behavior goal to not do exactly what he was doing in the weeks before he died. It's a legally binding document. It should have been enforced like any other legal document.
The other teachers had a lot of issues with Larry. And because I didn't have any, they didn't like the way I was handling my situation. I didn't run around and tell everybody, I give Larry a dress, I give Larry a dress. I'm the really cool angel on the horse coming down and saving all the little transgender children.
I've been teaching for 30 years. Junior high, boys especially, are homophobic. I was convinced that the kids would take it in their own hands since we did not. The Thursday before Larry was shot, I went into my principal and I said, if you don't physically come in there and do something to stop Larry's progression, the boys of the school are going to take him out behind the shed and beat him to death.
You gave him a dress and thought he was queen for a day, and wow, all of a sudden he's dead.
I'm quite sure Larry would not be dead if he had been my student that year.
After Larry's death, a gay pride rainbow group of about 1,500 people are marching down C Street right in front of our school. Now, who orchestrated that gay pride? In 14 years of teaching there, never seen that. Never seen it in the city of Oxnard, and right in front of our school? What is that? Who orchestrated that? I have huge questions, huge questions.
It's that tree right there with the big stakes. It's an Australian willow tree. It's a place to go where you can remember anyone you want to remember. And they don't have to necessarily be dead. It can be anyone, just anyone you want to remember. And Larry was my inspiration for it, but I can't really say that it was for Larry on the plaque that I'm trying to get because of school policy and stuff. They don't want to bring it up again.
Everybody's extremely scared to talk. They're very scared. The day they sent me my termination letter, I told them, you better as hell send me a really nice recommendation letter then. And this is what came the next day. At this time, Mrs. Boldrin feels the need to change her teaching environment, right? Unfortunately, we do not have other teaching positions that meet her needs, right? Therefore, I support her efforts to find a position that will give her what she needs.
When I first looked at these drawings, the first page, when we start seeing lightning bolts, is it doodling? Is it okay? When I started getting a little farther into the notebook where I was noticing drawings that stood out to me to be unusual, it's not just the book in his backpack. It's going through these books, the 12th SS, the history of the Hitler Youth Panzer Division, Volume 1 and 2. You go to any backpack in the city of Oxnard of any kid in the school district, they're probably not going to have Volume 1 and Volume 2 of this. This isn't just doing history. This is not Anne Frank.
The doodling that I saw in my kids' notebooks were really very interesting, but the swastika they would copy, and those who are artistically inclined, the whole Adolf Hitler with the mustache and the hand and the Heil, and you know, walking into class after being taught some of these things the very next day, it'd be perfectly normal. Heil, for kids to come in and say Heil.
This particular image was the most disturbing for me. Seeing the hand crushing the Star of David and the blood coming from it, its cracks. It's hard because I know Holocaust survivors. This is a very, very strong message. It's very, very powerful. To me, this is somebody who would want to see this happen again.
This trial finally starts after several years today. Defense attorneys told the jury that while McInerney indeed killed King, it was not a premeditated act of murder.
Brandon may have been bullied too, by Larry, in fact. Larry had reportedly told people the two were dating but had broken up. And just a couple of days before the shooting, classmates say Larry had asked Brandon to be his Valentine. And Brandon's friends joked the two would make gay babies together.
What Larry was doing to Brandon was an extreme form of bullying. It was an extreme form of sexual harassment. When playing basketball at lunch, Larry had wobbled onto the court, interrupted the game in front of all Brandon's basketball buddies and asked him if he would be his Valentine. To have any guy ask you that in front of all your peers, but to have a guy who's wearing high heels and makeup, that would be like the ultimate humiliation. It was very disturbing to all the boys, and so they, kind of talked about it in a guy way, macho way. It's bad enough to have this kid who wears girls' clothes, breaking all the rules, but then, guys don't hit on guys. If you want to really insult a guy, you call him gay. Brandon was thinking that he needed to get rid of Larry. He needed to save everyone from this, this scourge that had come up on the school.
The week before the shooting, I had an epiphany. I was out monitoring the students after school, and I saw this pretty little girl, and she had really short hair with these dangly pretty earrings and these high-heeled boots and beautiful little figure, and then she turned around and I saw it was a boy. It clicked. This is Larry, and this is what all the rumblings are about, and now I understand.
He came into my classroom before school with makeup on. I told him he needed to wash it off because we were working on these behavior issues. He wasn't supposed to draw attention to himself, and wearing makeup as a boy is definitely drawing attention to yourself.
I saw Brandon sitting on the bench, very angry and upset. Brandon's friends that were laughing at Brandon. That's when I first noticed Larry. He was kind of parading back and forth. It seemed like he was trying to get Brandon's attention.
Nobody else at E.O. Green hated Larry to the point that they wanted to hurt him. Brandon suggested they jump Larry, they beat him down, but nobody would help him do that, so he was basically going to do it all by himself.
Brandon's dad was going to take him to school and walked outside, and Brandon actually forgot the gun and had to go back in and get it. Now, there's an opportunity where fate has actually made you forget the one key element you need to commit a murder is the weapon. And instead of maybe taking a clue or, getting scared that you get caught, he just, nope, oops, I forgot the gun. I got to go back in and get it.
Even though Brandon was consumed by these feelings, there was a chance to stop and think. Larry was called out of the class. And during Larry's absence, Brandon began to have second thoughts. He had his hand in his sweatshirt pocket where the gun was. He was, at that point, thinking, maybe I won't do this. The ultimate trigger was Larry saying, I've changed my name to Letitia. When he heard that, it just obliterated any reserve or restraint that he had. That took it to another level. This guy who is doing these things to me is now going to be calling himself by a girl's name.
The admissions that Brandon made to Dr. Hoagland were so damning and corroborated the entire prosecution theory. I thought it was over.
He did not pull a Columbine. He did not go and shoot everybody he could. He shot Larry King because he didn't know what else to do to make it stop. But he's not a murderer. When you make this decision, use your common sense, use your heart, use your soul, and remember that he was 14.
Mr. Whipper just asked you to violate the law, use your heart, and 39 times he reminded you that the defendant was a 14-year-old boy. We talked about the fact that it's going to be difficult and that your emotions come in, but you have to check them at the door. The law requires you to do that. There is absolutely no way that the facts of this case could ever be voluntary manslaughter because no reasonable, average person would ever do what the defendant did. And it's sad. It is. It's tragic. It's awful. It's also a done deal.
Was it a momentary act of panic or a cold-blooded execution?
The jury has been unable to reach a verdict after deliberating for days.
In fact, the judge in this case has declared a mistrial. Just a short time ago, the jury saying they could not come to an agreement, with 7 jurors believing that he was guilty of voluntary manslaughter, 5 saying they believed he was guilty of murder.
He's looking at life in prison, and that's not an option.
We want a date certain that he can look at a calendar and say, on this date, I'm going to get out.
He doesn't want to go through this process again, and none of us want to go through this process again. But if we have to, then we have to. We'll have some talks with the district attorney's office and see if there's any kind of resolution that all parties can live with. None of the jurors believe that this was a hate crime.
That's good. What's that?
This is what I poured for you.
It's really good.
Where'd you get it?
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
$3.99.
You know, everybody's telling me about that.
I'm telling you, it's so good. And they have Cab, they have Merlot, and they have Malbec. We bonded because it was so frustrating to hear things in court, and there were times we were all crying in court, and we couldn't talk about it. Brandon's an intelligent kid. Everybody said it.
You know, I feel he's an intelligent, but I feel he's such a kid.
He's
I
immature.
feel, you know, when I looked at him and he was sitting at that table, my heart broke for him as a mom and a grandmother.
Not one of us thought he was a white
didn't buy it.
supremacist.
Never.
Now, his assignment on Adolf Hitler, could it have sparked his interest and thought, oh, wow, I want to know a little more about this? He's 14, of course it did. It did.
And they love to draw at that age.
Yes, they doodle in the
And he's
crosses
combining
and the-
symbolism.
Yes,
I doodle now, especially when I'm not happy about what I'm hearing and my hands go faster and faster.
Where are the civil rights of the one being taunted by another person who's cross-dressing? They have to address that.
Sure.
It's very important.
Clearly that wasn't addressed.
No, it wasn't, and he
Yes.
had no one he could turn to because the school was so pro Larry King civil rights. But where was Brandon's civil rights?
It was the high heels. I think it was the makeup, the behavior.
Because Marina?
Yes. She had a girlfriend. They were told not to hold hands in school, so they stopped.
She got it.
Exactly.
Larry
She
didn't get it. And had he followed her example,
we wouldn't be here today. Yeah.
We were supposed to not consider his age, which is very hard to do.
That was the very first thought I had. He is so young.
How can I, Rosalie, say that this kid needs to go to jail for the rest of his life? It would have to be so much more compelling in every way for me to even go down that avenue.
I do not think it was first-degree murder. However, it was premeditated. He had a plan to resolve this terrible problem because nobody was taking care of this problem.
By murder or just to maim him?
We don't know. And then he's having second thoughts about doing it. But then the green light, when he says, hey, Larry, I hear you're changing your name to Letitia, to him, that's a green light, pulls out the gun and shoots him.
Yeah.
He was solving a problem.
I picked a terrible jury. Juror number 11 wrote a letter to Judge Campbell. It is a tragedy and propaganda-filled witch hunt. You all know this was not a hate crime. You all know the victim had a long history of deviant behavior. Yes, I said deviant. As you can see, she CC'd Judge Campbell, me, Mr. Whippert, ABC 2020, The Ventura Star, Fox LA, and God.
Everybody's so worried about Brandon. Oh my God, he could get 52 to life. He shot a kid in the back of the head, point blank range, and premeditated it, and lied, watched the back of his head for 20 minutes. I feel bad for Brandon. He made some bad mistakes, and he's a kid. Do you hold him accountable for the rest of his life? I'm not a judge, but I can sure tell you that they made a murder victim the cause of his own murder. Never seen that before.